Hi, I'm Charles Purcell. This is the log for Friday, July 31st, last day of July, and 95 days to Election Day. 95 days to Election Day, 95 days till we vote. But actually, it's much fewer than that because you got to vote early, you guys. You got to vote as early as is legally possible. Make your plans now. Make sure you're registered. Get the lay of the land and make your plans. Of course, the Orange Menace. Now, I don't want to obsess on the Orange Menace, on the news of the day, every day about this crazy person. But we have to give him his due because of the level of danger he represents. Okay? So that's where I stand there. Of course, the big tweet yesterday, he floated the idea of delaying the election. It's not going to happen. The one thing I will warn you about, though, many people are very quick to point out, well, he can't do that. It's against the law. It's unconstitutional. He doesn't have the power. Well, there's a whole long list of things he's done that are unconstitutional and not within his power, but he does them anyway. So don't let that be your comfort, especially when he's got the Attorney General of the United States and lots of other very powerful people doing his bidding. So don't put anything past him. He doesn't care what's against the law or what's unconstitutional. He does it anyway, and he finds ways to get away with it. He's flaunting the Constitution as we speak, ignoring Supreme Court rulings regarding immigration, regarding his silly wall. And now, of course, we really should probably spend some time. I don't know if we need to do it here. You know what's going on with the post office, right? You know, of course, that he named this Louis DeJoy as Postmaster General because he's a big donor, a big supporter. And they're basically trying to destroy, quite literally destroy the post office, the U.S. Postal Service. And that's what the latest tweets have all been about. And yesterday about how, mail-in voting is going to be filled with fraud, which of course we know it's not. What's the latest number I saw? Mail-in ballots have a fraudulent rate of 0.0000006. So like maybe 6 out of 10 million. It's something like that. That's about the rate of fraud. So, yeah, look into the Postal Service story. That's the big headline, that he and his GOP enablers are literally, quite literally, I don't deal in hyperbole here on this program. They're quite literally trying to destroy it. If it were up to a lot of these guys, everything would just be privatized. There'd be no such thing as the post office. We'd have UPS and FedEx and, But right now, it's all about the election. It's all about the election. I mean, since the day Jeff Sessions and Roger Stone and Steve Bannon told him, yeah, go ahead, run. From that day until today, it's about nothing else but election all the time. That's all it's ever been about. Every move he makes is about his own ego, his own power, his own narcissism, his own glee in creating chaos and terror. That's all it's ever been about. But now we're at the 95-day mark, 95 days to the election. I mean, here it is. So just keep that in mind, that every single tweet, every single headline you read is just about manipulating the election. That's all it is. And as I said, he's got people working for him now. Ron Johnson. Coming to you here from River West, the greatest neighborhood in the world in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, my beloved Wisconsin. Man, how do we do it? How do we elect some of these people? Paul Ryan, Ron Johnson. Of course, we're the home of the infamous Joe McCarthy. Yeah, Ron Johnson now is all in, absolutely all in with the Orange Menace. Headline from Wisconsin Public Radio. As election looms, Wisconsin's Ron Johnson readies investigation into Joe Biden. So what Ukraine would not do, Ron Johnson is happy to do. Let's drum up some trumped-up charges, pun intended, on Joe Biden, and let's time it very nicely here for the election. Every dirty trick in the book is going to be pulled out, and we know it. The Democratic National Convention is coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Starts August 17th, 18, 19, 20, that week, Monday through Thursday. You know, just plan on it. Every single day of that convention will be a major headline of some sort. Because Ron Johnson is in on the act. Bill Barr is in on the act. He's also just pretty much came right out and promised an October surprise. But we're going to get August surprises and September surprises and October surprises. And he and his little cabal are just in full gear here. They're in full gear. And we won't drop everything and play their game and let them dominate the news cycle. We have to respond. We have to label it for what it is. Lies, manipulation. And it's not that every story doesn't have teeth. I mean, getting back to the Postal Service thing, there's legitimate, actual, real danger here to the American people who rely on the U.S. Postal Service. It's older than the nation itself. So, yes, they're going to be dealing in fake news. Ron Johnson's going to have trumped-up charges. Bill Barr is going to come up with some nefarious legal findings. Mike Pompeo will come up with some international incident, surely, absolutely, all based on lies. But lies and fake news and campaign strategy do have a real impact on the real world and in real people's lives. Look no further than Homeland Security troops and CBP and ICE and all of them landing in Portland and now in Chicago and Milwaukee and other cities. That goes way beyond a tweet. That goes way beyond some weird idea. Now we're talking people's lives, and in some cases, lives lost. So I'm not the guy who says, oh, it's just a distraction, ignore it. Oftentimes that is the case. But there are real-time, real-life consequences to some of this stuff. Here's something that caught my eye this week. Headline, a former Border Patrol agent describes the special federal unit deployed in Portland as one of, quote, the most violent and racist in all law enforcement. A couple days ago, Business Insider. A former senior Border Patrol agent described an elite federal unit deployed by the Trump administration to quell protests in Portland as one of the most violent and racist in all law enforcement. Jen Budd, who worked at the agency for 6 years until 2001, described her encounters with the U.S. Border Patrol's unique unit, known as the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, or BORTAC, to The Guardian in a story published on Monday. The specially trained officers are the biggest guys, like the jocks on a football team. They live in tight groups like the Navy SEALs, spending their time in military-style training. They don't exist within the realm of civilian law enforcement. They view people they encounter in the military sense as enemy combatants, meaning they have virtually no rights, she said. BORTAC, which was established in 1984, often functions as the Border Patrol's SWAT team and is responsible for carrying out missions related to drug trafficking, human smuggling, and other high-risk operations. Members undergo advanced training, have special weapons, and are deployed both domestically and internationally, such as in Afghanistan and Iraq. They don't do normal vehicle stops. They will rip drivers from their seat, throw him against the side, put him in handcuffs, the same tactics you now see BORTAC agents use in Portland, Budd told The Guardian. All for his own vanity, all for his own power, all for his own election. But we can't laugh this stuff off. This is happening. You may recognize the name John Gartner. He's the psychologist and the driving force behind the Duty to Inform, where dozens of psychologists got together and said, well, we have to warn the nation about this guy. And they've been trying to tell us for a couple of years now that this guy is a malignant narcissist. Very, very sick, deeply disturbed in a dark way that normal people just can't even comprehend. A lot of us want to talk about Trump's incompetence. Gartner warns us he's not just incompetent, he's actively engaging in sabotage just because of his own sickness. He takes glee, he takes satisfaction in the chaos, in being the bully, in having power, and in making people suffer, humiliating them. Let me read now from a recent article in the Salon. This is a quote from Gartner. The fourth component of Trump's malignant narcissism is sadism. That part of Trump's mind is more hidden. People such as Trump are malignant narcissist sadists because they at some deep level are driven to cause harm to other people. All right, listen to this. At some deep level are driven to cause harm to other people. Trump's life is proof of this. He enjoys ripping people off and humiliating people. He does this maniacally and gleefully. I also believe that Donald Trump is democidal. I would even go so far as to say that he is a democidal maniac. Again, this is John Gartner, Princeton, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, Johns Hopkins University. This is a traditionalist, respected, established psychologist. He's warning us. And he's got hundreds of colleagues with him trying to warn us. He believes the Orange Menace is democidal. Again, quoting, I would even go so far as to say that he is a democidal maniac. If you look at human history, there is one trait that all malignant narcissistic leaders have in common. They kill mass numbers of their own people. Why would Donald Trump be any different? It's probably not lost on Trump that the people who are being disproportionately killed by the coronavirus are people in Democratic blue states and cities, non-white people, other marginalized people in the society, working class people. These are the people who Donald Trump sees as less than, inferior to him, the types of people he likes to grind down under his heel. Such behavior and beliefs are common among malignant narcissists. Malignant narcissists like Donald Trump view other human beings as kindling wood to be burned for their own personal enrichment and enlargement and expansion. And finally, and what started me down this path, we're 95 days to Election Day. The Salon article closes with this from Dr. Gartner. Like in a relationship, Donald Trump is the abuser. He is the husband or father who is abusing his partner or children or other relatives. The American people are like a woman who is leaving her abuser. She tells her abuser, that's it, I'm done with you. She has her keys in hand and is opening the door of the house or apartment to finally leave. What happens? The democidal maniac, Donald Trump, will attack us badly. Make no mistake, Donald Trump is going to find a way to attack and cause great harm to the American people if he believes that he will lose the 2020 election. That's psychologist John Gartner. Duty to Warn, interviewed by Chauncey DeVega. That appears in Salon. So I'm just asking you, be ready here. In the next 95 days, every day there's going to be a new headline, a new outrage. And every day we'll be warned not to buy into the distraction. Yes, there's certainly some truth to that. But at the same time, once again, they cannot be ignored because the guy has real power, as much as we don't want to admit it. The U.S. Postal Service is in peril. Protesters exercising their First Amendment rights are in peril. I'm talking health, welfare, and their very lives in some cases. And if Gartner is right, this could amplify substantially. The word Gartner uses is democide. I had to look that up, actually. I'm reading from Wikipedia right now. Democide is a term proposed by R.J. Rummel, who defined it as, quote, the intentional killing of an unarmed or disarmed person by government agents acting in their authoritative capacity and pursuant to government policy or high command. This definition covers a wide range of deaths, including forced labor and concentration camp victims, killings by unofficial private groups, extrajudicial summary killings, and mass deaths due to government acts of criminal omission and neglect, such as in deliberate famines, as well as killings by de facto governments, i.e. Civil War killings. According to Rummel, democide surpassed war as the leading cause of non-natural death in the 20th century. Democide. What else would you call it? As of today, 155,306 dead from the coronavirus. Over 1,000 medical experts signed that open letter this week, claiming that the great majority, 90% of those deaths, 99% of those deaths, were avoidable. That the great majority of these deaths are the direct result of gross incompetence and what Gartner is accusing, intentional, democidal, maniacal mass murder. You think this is too strong? Tell me. Tell me how. Tell me how. Tell me why. Give me a good reason. Make your argument. I'll listen to you. If I could imagine that argument, I would voice it. I'd voice the argument. The best argument against that. I can't come up with one. When the death count was starting to climb on the virus, and the Orange Menace and Ron Johnson and others were just saying, yeah, well, you're going to have to die. Just like military personnel have to die. We have to die for the cause. Literally sacrifice your life so that Karen can get her nails done. Because that's the American way of life. That's how sick these guys are. And if Gartner is right, the Orange Menace is actually taking sick pleasure in all of this. I haven't got an argument against him. Well, all right. I've gone further on this than I had intended to. I promised you, and I repeat the promise, we're not going to talk about the Orange Menace all day, every day. But we are 95 days to election. We're on this final sprint, and we just have to be aware of what this guy and his toadies are capable of and what they're going to be throwing at us. Because here it comes. They're going to throw the kitchen sink and everything else at us. It's going to be a barrage. And we just have to be prepared. I'm sorry. I always try to be a little happier on Fridays. I want to send you off with something. Oh, here's some good news. All right, here's some great news. U.S. economy drops 32.9% in worst GDP report ever. Okay, this is great news. I know. You think it's bad news, but it's great news. Have you seen the graph? Have you seen this graph? It goes all the way back to 1950. The ups and downs of the U.S. economy, the ups and downs of the GDP report. And, of course, we had this incredible growth, usually during Democratic terms, and slumps during Republican terms, this uninterrupted growth through all of the Obama years. And then it drops like a stone. The largest drop before this was 10%. Quarter 1, 1958, minus 10%. 3 times that. 32.9% drop in quarter 2 of 2020. And why is this good news? Because that means we manufactured less. We did less. And that's what we want. I want to see another drop and another drop and another drop until this thing tanks just out of sight. We have to stop buying things and making things because it's killing all of us. It's killing the planet. And so for me, this is great news. Keep it up. Oh, but people lose their jobs. Yeah, they do lose their jobs. All these dopey jobs that nobody needs. because we are working for the economy. The economy hasn't been working for us for decades. All we're doing is driving ourselves crazy and killing the planet. So I say, great news. A 32.9% drop, 3 times worse, or in my case, better, than the previous worse or better, going all the way back to 1958. Because what this will force us to do is just look at each other and say, yeah, we're doing this wrong. We're doing pretty much everything wrong. The resources that come from the earth, there are plenty to sustain us if we live gently on the earth, if there's justice, if there's any kind of equity among the world's population, if there's any sensitivity and compassion for the non-human life on this planet, we'll find better ways to do this. A 33% drop in GDP is great news. I hope we have another 33% in the third quarter and another 60% in the fourth quarter. I hope this thing completely drops off the cliff and entirely out of sight, and it'll force us to look at each other and say, nope, a new way. We need a new way to do this. We need a new way to take care of ourselves and to take care of each other. Unleash our creativity, unleash our compassion for each other. Relying on money and profit and production and consumption has proven fatal to us and to the planet. So that's the greatest news I've seen in a long time, a 33% drop in GDP. Let's keep it up. Keep up the good work, everybody. Well, I want to leave you today. We're going to close the show with the words of John Lewis. Big memorial service yesterday. All 4 former presidents, Jimmy Carter sent a message, but the other 3, Bush, Clinton, and Obama, spoke. And then released to the press John Lewis's own final words. Really moving, if you haven't read it. Wrote it shortly before he died, asked that it be published on the day of his funeral. So it was published yesterday. And then Morgan Freeman reads the essay for all of us to hear, and it's just beautiful. So we're going to close the show with that. The inspiring words of John Lewis, as read by actor Morgan Freeman.
While my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you used your power to make a difference in our society. Millions of people motivated simply by human compassion laid down the burdens of division. Around the country and the world, you set aside race, class, age, language, and nationality to demand respect for human dignity. That is why I had to visit Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, though I was admitted to the hospital the following day. I just had to see and feel it for myself, that after many years of silent witness, the truth is still marching on. Emmett Till was my George Floyd. He was my Rayshard Brooks, Sandra Bland, and Breonna Taylor. He was 14 when he was killed, and I was only 15 years old at the time. I will never, ever forget the moment when it became so clear that he could easily have been me. In those days, fear constrained us like an imaginary prison, and troubling thoughts of potential brutality committed for no understandable reason were the bars. Though I was surrounded by 2 loving parents, plenty of brothers, sisters, and cousins, their love could not protect me from the unholy oppression waiting just outside that family circle. Unchecked, unrestrained violence and government-sanctioned terror had the power to turn a simple stroll to the store for some Skittles or an innocent morning jog down a lonesome country road into a nightmare. If we are to survive as one unified nation, we must discover what so readily takes root in our hearts that could rob Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina of her brightest and best, shoot unwitting concert goers in Las Vegas, and choked to death the hopes and dreams of a gifted violinist like Elijah McClain. Like so many young people today, I was searching for a way out, or some might say a way in. And then I heard the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on an old radio. He was talking about the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence. He said we are all complicit when we tolerate injustice. He said it is not enough to say it will get better by and by. He said each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, and speak out. When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something. Democracy is not a state. It is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build what we call the beloved community, a nation and world society at peace with itself. Ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. Voting and participating in the democratic process are key. The vote is the most powerful nonviolent change agent you have in a democratic society. You must use it because it is not guaranteed. You can lose it. You must also study and learn the lessons of history because humanity has been involved in this soul-wrenching existential struggle for a very long time. People on every continent have stood in your shoes through decades and centuries before you. The truth does not change, and that is why the answers worked out long ago can help you find solutions to the challenges of our time. Continue to build union between movements stretching across the globe, because we must put away our willingness to profit from the exploitation of others. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence, is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide.
This episode of The Log is available right now wherever you find your podcasts, including Apple, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube, and more. Or better yet, go to charlespurcell.com for the full archive and all the other series in the podcast family. Follow, comment, and contact me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks to our flagship station, River West Radio, riverwestradio.com. Theme music composed and performed by Peter Donalds. From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I'm Charles Purcell.